Buenos días a cada una de ustedes. Sean bienvenidas a la sesión de hoy. Con mucha alegría nos volvemos a
Good morning to each of you. Welcome to today's session. We are meeting again with all the happiness in the world, wishing you a very good day, good afternoon, good night, and that this session be a good one and that we can share and do a dialogue of cosmos, cultural feelings, and feeling thinkings. I'm going to leave Dunan with us, who's going to do the invocation. Should we wait a little bit or should we start, Dunan? We can start. Good morning, Mayora Lorena sisters. I'm so happy that I'm with you guys today. For the invocation of today, I would like to share with you a fragment of the autobiography of a leader, a woman leader, Indigenous leader called Dionysia. And the reason that I'm sharing the story, the fragment of a story of an Indigenous woman, is because in this exercise that we are doing in the framework of intercultural research, it's important to remember this memory that Dionysia was a woman that was stolen from her family when she was a child and taken to an orphanage of the Capuchino mission because the colonization strategy and assimilation of the Capuchinos was to say that the indigenous people in the community from which Tunisia came from had to be educated because they were savages. And so Dionisia was stolen from her family and taken to a place called an orphanage where they take children that don't have a mother and a father. And Dionisia had a mother, had a father, but under this technique, this policy of state, she was stolen. And at this time, this was legal. And this is important that we remember. And I will read you a small fragment of Tunisia. 1 second, please. The chapter is called My First Memories, and I'm going to read a small fragment. The first memory that I have of my life is with the grandmother of my mother. My great grandmother, I see her in her hand, and she's carrying me. She's carrying my fingers one side to the next. When I was 9 years old, my mother got very sick with a pox, one of the poxes that would affect us really badly back in the day. My grandmother took me to live with her and my great grandmother that was still alive at the time. The family on my mother's side was very special because in all the generations, they had never had more than one child. My great grandmother had only had one daughter, my grandmother, and hence that what had happened with the previous generation. When I was born, my grandmother was very happy because I was the second child of my mother's, as she said, the daughter that the world needs has just been born. My grandmother was the one in charge of taking care of me and raising me because my mother was very sick. When I was 2 years old, I lived with my grandmother and great grandmother, and every once in a while, my parents would come home to see me. When my grandmother would leave to the farm, I would stay in San Sebastian with my great grandmother. And I remember that in the house, there was a small black dog, and my great grandmother had a lot of sheep, and I would go with someone else to uh, to herd them. And I would take the little dog, and my grandmother would let me take her to herd the sheep with me. And we would jump everywhere. When I saw that a sheep would come close to me, I would scream. And here I'm going to pass to another fragment of my autobiography when she tells the story that she was taken to the Capuchina mission. She says, "We have always had our tradition, and always our problems have been solved with the mambos, the spiritual guides. The mission didn't have the right to intervene in our lives, unless with the violence that it did, even if the problems that we had were very great. Why did this mission have to send people to steal children? A man came into the night and they took the oldest one. They took her to the mission. Those were the ones in the commission. Who else was it going to be?" And my mother would cry, my grandmother would cry. The previous day, I had gone to pick up water in the river, and I started um, jumping on the sand, and that's where my footprints were. And the next morning, I wasn't in my house; I had been stolen. I remember that when that night, I would I would touch the person that was carrying me, and they would put me back to sleep. They left me there on top of a mattress where I fell asleep, and I woke up on top of that mattress, and on a light that I saw they had left on, I started crying. I was in a big room filled with children that all cried because they had all had stolen us, 12 children. And this is a small fragment of the story of Dionisia, of what she remembers when she was a child and when she was stolen by the Capuchino mission. And why do I bring this in this invocation to the floor? Because those are the women who have built the story and have fought to bring back our rights as women and as peoples. When she is older, Dionisia becomes a great leader that is able to expel from the indigenous territory the Capuchino mission. And so I wanted to share a little bit of their life, and for us to commend ourselves to our ancestors and spiritual parents to continue in this road of intercultural research, that so that all their wisdom illuminates us, because we're not alone, and that we can walk together side by side and move forward and reflect together and strengthen ourselves in our spirituality. Thank you. Thank you, dear Dunin. Really, to hear that story of Dionysia is, well, it brings us back to stories of grandmothers and or great grandmothers that were sold to farms, kidnapped, and how colonization had different roads, but they were never roads of harmony and respect and dignity, but instead roads of violence, oppressions that are now internalized in our bodies, our energy bodies, our physical bodies, our spiritual bodies, and emotional bodies. And that afterwards we carry it from generation to generation. And maybe that will allow us to understand why sometimes there are moments of depression and sadness that sometimes we don't understand. It could be historical charges that we have. And I think our cosmovision allows us to heal, in a way to heal is to know the story. And that's why intercultural research is a means to know and recover and visualize the story that's written and feel and thought, felt and thought of originary peoples and indigenous women of the world, because they no longer write for us or think for us. We are the ones that will listen to our grandmothers and grandfathers and the generations and the women and water, the mountains, to the mountains that have been depleted. And when you say, what did it look like before? The mountain will speak to us. So the idea is how from our cosmos,
pensares.
from our feeling thinkings, and from intercultural research, we can recover that strength. Because thank you, Dunin, for bringing that today, the story of that child. I can only imagine how many thousands of children in our peoples have lived and gone through those moments and probably will continue going through those situations, product of colonization, neocolonization, and of that voracious system that oppresses us, that exploits us and depletes us. But here we are, live, we are standing, carrying out research process of decolonization and demercantilized processes, where we are recovering and positioning our cosmovision and our systems of the people. How we have been able to survive to those imposed systems, how we have been able to say we are alive, even though the cement company or the pollution or violence is still present. Violence, structural violence, and gender violence, and the violence against women, and all the manifestations of just sexual violence as a way, and one of the biggest results of colonization. So thank you. We bring our hands together, honoring the energy of grandmothers, great grandmothers, and ancestors, and children, young people, adults that have gone through this process of violence, depletion, and pain, but that have lifted their face to the sun. Like Donita, that was able to expel from the territories those who oppressed
Por años.
her and oppressed them for years, children and families. So I invite you to have these energies and these ancestors to imitate the defense of life and the caring for life, respect for life in all its manifestations. We hug each other. We say we're alive, we're present. And if you can open your cameras, I would appreciate it. We turn our heads back to the center and down, the back center and to the bottom,
Izquierdo,
to the left and to the right side.
el lado derecho, centro, lado izquierdo, centro, lado derecho, centro, lado izquierdo. Giramos nuestra cabeza completamente. Una vez.
We rotate our head completely once, twice, 3, and 4.
Y 4 veces para atrás. Una vez, 2 veces, 3 y 4 veces. Nos estiramos.
We stretch as much as we can. We raise our hands. Nukila, Jenny, all of you that are here, my Fatima Liz. We go like that.
4 veces. Una en la mañana, en la tarde, en la noche y en la madrugada. Recuérdense que esos son nuestros 4 momentos. En la mañana,
in the morning, in the afternoon, in the nighttime, and in the morning, in the early morning.
Las manos, moviéndolas, 1, 2,
Move
3.
your hands.
Sacudimos como que nos lloviera.
We shake
Para arriba,
to
para los lados,
the sides,
para abajo,
to the bottom,
para más abajo,
even further to the bottom.
para los lados,
You go
para
up
el
to the
centro y
sides
para abajo. Muy bien.
and to the bottom.
Bienvenidas a nuestra sesión de hoy.
Welcome to our session today with all the energy of light, of the happiness.
Vamos a tener 2 momentos.
We have 2 moments today. The first one is sharing your stakeholders map that you were able to make a graphic by region. And the second one is we're going to talk briefly on the importance of the budget for our incidence plans, because the idea is that with what resources we're going to use those incidence plans. So we need to look for that. So we're going to work on that. Welcome. We're going to share our stakeholders map, like you worked in groups. And now we're going to socialize them. So welcome. And we're going to start with Latin America.
Grupo de Ayala que nos pueda presentar, luego seguiríamos con Asia.
Then we would move on with Asia, and then Africa. The methodology will be the following. Who will observe Latin America will be Asia. Asia observes and comments Latin America. Then we would have Asia presents and Africa comments on Asia. Questions or comments. And then Africa presents and Latin America is going to comment. They ask questions, comments, or suggestions if necessary. So welcome. We're going to start with Latin America so that they can present briefly how they did their stakeholders map, and then that they can present it graphically and explain it to us. So welcome, Jessie, Samai, Liz, and Janine. Good morning to all. Dear sisters, we were working on Friday on this, and the stakeholders map was very necessary, to do the chart, the matrix. So I'm going to share it. First of all, quickly, I want to say that the stakeholders map is going to look like this. We identify their influence. First, internal stakeholders, then external stakeholders. External stakeholders that don't have a presence. And also we incorporate in one matrix everything that we have, all of us have, and our chart. You can see it? Yes, we can see it. Thank you. So we take on the project that has to do with the millenary cosmovisions of Indigenous women on the care of water. And in the center, as main stakeholders, we have Indigenous women, which is to whom this project is directed towards, with whom we want to build. And the collective from which, the collective that supported me with this research. The collective called Huastecas at National Environment and National institutions that are within the communications, which are mainly the community committees of water, drainage, and health, that have a lot of relationship with the caring of water as actors we identify this organization that's regional, that's called For the Love of My Country, that works with environmental issues. There's businesses, which is like called material houses for sale, or construction materials for sale. These are external stakeholders that contribute to the problem because they extract a lot of gravel from the river, and that has a prejudice on the environment and the water. And then we also have the different people who extract water from the river for sale. There are people that with big vessels, they go to the river and they fill it with the water, and then they sell the water. And it's a benefit. Sorry, I think it came off. It's a benefit, it's an economic benefit that's only for them. And that really there's no retribution towards the community. So it's also having an impact. And these are stakeholders I taking into consideration when we analyze this problem, to be able to try to reach an agreement where they can participate, so that their activity, whether it's looking for an option that is more sustainable, and that they can provide some sort of a support and retribute or contribute to nature as much as possible. And here we have the public institutions that are from the regional governments, and here we have departments of ecology and environment that are the ones that are carrying out more concrete actions or surrounding the nature and the water. And we also have educational institutions that have a presence in the region, like the Autonomous University of Hidalgo and the National University and Technological University of Hidalgo. That has to do with students and the studies of nature. So those are also allies. And when we do the stakeholders map, we have a relationship that is mid, because we'd only have a relationship with one, which is the Autonomous University of Hidalgo, and we need to strengthen our relationships with the other two educational institutions. And on the other hand, we have an interinstitutional committee for which is a state organization that has a broader reach. And let's say that with this one, the relationship, well, there is no relationship really, because it's an organization that's very important, because drought is one of the biggest problems, and it's really a priority. But the truth is that this committee has just started working 2 months ago, and so we're in the process of creating the institution and the action. It has been identified. This is the National Water Commission that also has the presence in the state, but that at a regional, local level, it doesn't have a lot of impact, really. There really isn't actions that are being carried out in the Huasteca region that have to do directly, or that coordinate with this organism directly. And finally, here we have announced the State Commission of Universities, which is also has a broader reach, that because it reaches the entire state. We still haven't strengthened the relationship, but we have identified those actions or strategies that they have, and that we could also propose as a working group some sections, those spaces that we have. This is our map. Thank you. Thank you, Jesse, from the team of Latin America. Does anybody else from the team want to say something? And if not, we give a space to the comments and questions from Asia. Does anybody else want to say something?
Yeah, thank you so much for Latin America for the presentation. It was really great. And I would like to ask some question regarding the mapping of the stakeholders. One is, how do you engage with the regional organizations, because they're too far, right? They're not at the border or the territory or at the national, how do you call that? Yeah, at the national level. But how you can enrich, engage with them and bring them into allies or collaboration or coalition. That's my first question. Also, this is very important because it will be related with the security issues, because it will be, you know, the government will not like it, right? Because it is under the national level. So how do you solve this problem? This is the first one. The second one, how do you collaborate with the universities or think tank organization or research institution, because they are more on normative, yeah, they are more on theoretical, they are more on, you know, they don't know what is going on the at the on the street, yeah, they don't really know on the field. So how do you convince them to allies with you or to collaborate with you? Thank you so much.
Gracias, Nukila, por tus...
Thank you, Nukila, for your question. First of all, in the case of institutions, whether it's state institutions or international institutions, what we do first is this search of revising their working plans of these institutions, what has to do with their missions and their objectives. Yes, the audio is no longer working. I'm sorry. So I was saying is what we do is identify what is the mission and the objectives as an institution and the axis of the work axis that are our priority. So once we identify that, we analyze in what axis, working axis, there is an opportunity where we can collaborate. If there is a topic on water or gender and water, for example, water and health in indigenous communities, there's a space that is collective space, like the project that I'm proposing. I can create an incidence. And so after that, what happens is that we try to look for a way to get closer to those organizations. We look for people in charge, we ask for a meeting. And in this meeting, what we do is to share what we do and what we can bring forth. And if we can reach an agreement to start with some sort of an activity, a conversation, forum where all institutions or people can collaborate. No, that's on one side. Also, when we speak about budgets, when there are public institutions and they have some sort of a percentage of a designated budget, they also have to explain what they did with their budget. And they look for these these institutions look for civil organizations or local organizations because in the end, we do a lot of the work that these institutions need to do. So, and the reality is that we support each other because we can also obtain part of that financial help that they get from that budget. And in the case of institutions, educational institutions, here universities have something called a research academic bodies. That's what they're called here. And so those research academic bodies also have to carry out research projects that have an impact in the society. So in this case, in the university that we're working with, which is the Autonomous University of the State of Hidalgo, the area through which we make this link is the social work area where they carry out participatory projects in this territory, that have a presence where they have a presence, and the human right to water and a healthy environment is a very important directive in social work, because if we don't have a very healthy environment and a nature in harmony, you can imagine any other kind of well-being. So for them it's essential, and so it is also for us, and that's how kind of we come together, because there's also educational institutions. The National Council of Technology also provides certain financial aids to carry out these incidents actions at a social level in the communities and the territories. And that's where we come in, and we try to establish these coordinations and alliances to try to have direct incidence in what's going on. So again, it's a mutual support where we both can work together and provide what we have in resources. Like in our case, it's a human and technical resource. For example, we have partners that speak the mother tongue of the region, which is Nahuatl, and for them, it's important because to arrive at an area as a researcher brings a lot of obstacles, because we do feel like there's a lack of trust of providing information. But if you have in the team somebody from the region that speaks the language and that knows the culture, it's a very important element that makes people be more open and want to participate. So that's why we complement each other very well. Thank you. Does anybody have a question or comment, Aisha? Is there another question or comment? Asia? Any question or comment from Asia? Or any recommendation for the Latin America team?
I have some suggestion, maybe. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I have some suggestion. Maybe it's better to have also the involvement of the media, like a mass media, or from the newspaper, from online media, so they can be involved to cover the journey of the researchers, and also to make it published. So we don't need to have a publication, but during our activism or research, we can share our findings, our outcome to the policymakers, or to the public, to the people, to the I think it's more reachable if we engage with the media persons, like a media institution like newspaper, TV, or radio or something like that. That it's very useful, I think. Thank you.
¿Tiene alguna respuesta, comentario?
Does Latin America have any comment or answer in regards to this?
Sí, muchas gracias, Miquela, por tu recomendación. Y sí, como colectivo, pues lo que
Thank you,
hacemos
Nukila, for your recommendation. And as a collective, what we do is share all this information that we are building, especially in the social media, because we've had a really good impact. Because effectively, you're right, the community radios are very important, and in that sense, we still have to strengthen that part of alliance with the community radios, because we haven't done it yet, but in the region we do have radios. The region we do have radios, and they have an impact. So thank you. Thank you. If there's nothing else, thank you to Asia for their help. Maybe I would like to remind the team of Latin America, if you could please put up your presentation again, to do a recommendation in regards to the map, the actors map, the stakeholders map. I know that the one we just presented in the center, what did you write? Indigenous women in the center. In the center, the point is to write down what is the change that we want and what is going to be the group or the sector or the collective that's going to propose that change. What change are you looking for? Are you looking to achieve? And who are the actors or the people or the community that's going to be involved in is looking for that change? Because those are the ones that are in the center that are going to establish that link. As researchers, we're going to accompany that only. Maybe it's not there, but in the actors map, it needs to appear the desired change and the key stakeholders that are going to promote it. So even if it's not on there, we need to see it. Maybe Jesse can tell us a little bit about it, because they were in the building and in creating this stakeholders map. And what is the change you're looking for? Well, the main change is to sensibilize Indigenous women on the importance of knowledge, ancestral knowledge that have to do with taking care of water and nature. And based off of that sensibilization, to have some sort of empowerment and a collective organization amongst us, to promote actions that are concrete, like an environmental agenda that's ours, that have as a basis the participation of women and millenary knowledge. So in that sense, the idea in the first moment is, Indigenous women. So the incidents will be oriented to the inside, the sensibilization on the inside. I have a suggestion. You have another phase. And if we realize there are various actors that, as you mentioned, are impacting with the pollution of water, there are other instances that I would like to suggest you identify these other stakeholders that can impact negatively on water. That could be external stakeholders that are against, because here we haven't seen if they're in favor or against, if they're gonna be okay with having an agenda for women in defense of water. That would be another recommendation that I see. And the other is what would be on one side, I see the incidents on two sides, one at an internal level and the other is at an external level, because for us in our territories, we have to have actions to take care of water. But then companies will come in that have products that are going to pollute the water with plastics, for example, and they sell their products. We have companies that sell technological packages of chemicals that pollute the water. And you could have other instances that could move the water, for example. So to identify those stakeholders that generate a structural problem is very important. How are you going to create incidents in this? That would.
Y luego, pues lógicamente que esto se va a construir en colectivo con la comunidad, con las comunidades donde estamos haciendo la investigación. Y lo importante es que ustedes tengan clara la metodología o la recreen. Lo importante es apropiarnos de qué es el mapa de actores y cómo lo vamos a implementar ya en las
We need to
comunidades.
see how we're going to implement it in the communities and territories where we're going to do our research. And on the other hand, in the research process, we said in the last session, we have to really research those stakeholders and have information. What is the magnitude to know who we are facing against, especially the adversaries, those who are not in favor and are encouraging the pollution of water. That would be my recommendation, a very good exercise. You identify local stakeholders and national stakeholders that have to do with the human right to water, and the academia part of aspect who are in charge of start generating ideas. And maybe a lot of it is not at our reach, but it is at the university level. So it's a good idea to identify these as stakeholders. The universities of environmental sciences should be included to do this process. And then afterwards, the other element is the communication, the media, like Asia was saying, how are they going to accompany this process to socialize results of the research, to present the problematic of pollution, to create an evidence of the strength of the community to take care of water, and also the knowledge that exists, and also to convince, to promote the processes that are being undertaken. Thank you to Latin America. We applaud you from here, and let's continue working on this process. Thank you so much. We continue with the Asia team that's going to present now their stakeholders map. We are prepared, Asia, to present your stakeholders map, to share it. And we request Africa to be on the lookout to listen and make any comments or recommendations and questions as well. So welcome, Asia, with your stakeholders map.
Min, hello. Good evening to everyone. Min, are you there? Min.
Yes. Me?
Yeah. Yeah? Would you
yes.
like to present your table? Yeah, please.
That's fine. You can present.
Shall I project your table?
You want me to present mine?
Yes.
Okay, fine. I will present. I will share my screen, please.
Okay.
Yes. Here is my stakeholder maps. For internal, for the community people, the elderly, because based on my case study on divorced young mother of a younger, so my participants are start with like for the internal community people, the elderly and grandparents, so they have high influence and Yeah, and this go with the as a relationship level. We go with like collaboration. We have to collaborate each other to be able to do that. And for the community leaders and religious leader, it is a bit difficult to convince them to be able to like to share or to collaborate with me. But I think is it still okay for me to convince them. And for the women, yes, I tried. Yeah, I can get them. So they also have high powers or influence to conduct my papers to be able to achieve the change what I want. What I want to see, the change I hope at the end of my papers. For the married women and youth or men, for the women and youth, it would be not too difficult, but based on my experience, it's still a bit difficult to convince some of the youth or like the women because they don't want to share. They have less confidence to talk about that. As the community like believe it is not something we should discuss. People believe it is something we should stay silent. So, but I still working on that. And the hardest part I think is the men. Men in my community, they don't want to talk something like that because most of the men believe they have, yeah. So it is. But however, I believe that I can still convince them. I'm still in the process. For the external, with the women, like their NGO or civil group with the youth association to be able to collaborate with them. Due to the situations or the conflicts in my country, it is quite difficult today. In the past, it is still okay, but just later after the coup today, there are lots of like civil war. So not many women groups or association continues working on that. Many groups like there is a group that I know working for women in our community like left. They don't have any more. So is it still like a bit difficult? So however, I believe I can still convince. We will need to align with them. I will need to work with them. I have they are median influence. And for the external, with like government officials or rules, I think it's tension. Like I have mentioned earlier, due to the conflict in my country, in my area, nowadays the civil war is happening nearly every day. So it is really like tensive, and we have to be really worried about our security concerns. So not many people working on that. And yes, yeah, that is my plan. And I think they have high powers. They have the most power in influence. Thank you so much. Can I stop sharing my screen? Please feel free to give me suggestion. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, teacher. Thank you, teacher.
Gracias. Gracias. ¿Alguien más de Asia?
Yeah.
Anybody else from Asia?
Yeah, I will just show the PowerPoint, an example. Wait. Here. Okay. There. Yeah, this is just as an example because we were not able to do a group PowerPoint. Oh, okay. So This is a bit different with Mint because my focus is empowerment of women leaders to effectively participate uh, in the political and public life. Because we want to highlight especially the voice on gender, who women leaders who will take on the concern on gender-based violence, land degradation, and peace building and conflict resolution or healing. So close to the women, close, very close allies of the women are the elders and the children, and their concern with the children also. But within the town, very important allies are the local government unit, the village officials, elected officials. It's good that the village has it has 8 local officials with 4 women and 4 men. So that's a uh, very good balance in terms of numbers. We also have working relations with the mayor, the local chief executive, and then the municipal council. But within the municipal council, there's only one woman out of 8. Unfortunately, still the culture is very patriarchal, and unfortunately, also the woman who got elected has a view that women are must submit to the men. It's out of her religious. Sorry, I went out.
Continue, we can hear you now.
¿No la escuchamos?
Yeah, yes, I'm back.
Sí, sí, sí.
Sorry,
Muy bien,
sorry.
muy bien.
Yes. Yeah, so it's and we also have in the local government unit, we collaborate with the municipal agriculture office for the organic farming and sustainable agriculture. And then especially for gender-based violence, there's the social welfare office that we collaborate with to protect the children and also take on the cases of women. But like the municipal council, the uh, uh, dominant culture is unfortunately very patriarchal. Women are very assertive and very vocal, but as I discussed with there's another stakeholder, the municipal official on the Department of Interior and Local Government. This office looks into the functions of the local government unit, and they monitor them. So it's good that this thing is that the officer of this office, who is based in the town, it's a national government agency, they have a sub office in the town, is a strong advocate of women.
Sí, sí, parece que la señal de Tom, sí, porque se salió de la sesión. Sí, ahí está. Bienvenida, Dom. ¿Nos escucha?
Welcome back, Tom. Can you hear us?
Parece que
We lost your audio.
el Zoom. Si puede poner su audio.
Yeah, sorry.
Gracias.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it was observed. It was observed. Yeah. Can
La
you
escuchamos.
hear me?
Si desea, Dom, cierra
Can
su cámara.
you hear me?
Cierra su cámara para tratar de escuchar mejor. Quizá eso ayude un poco, porque está muy
Maybe close
interesante.
your camera. Maybe that can help us We can't hear you. Sometimes we can't hear you because of signal. So maybe turn off your camera. That could help. We can't hear you very well. I'm sorry.
Florence, maybe you have to turn off your camera.
Sorry, I lost the interpretation. Okay. What happened there? Okay. Sorry. What happened? I missed the interpretation. Uh, uh, I think this is all. We can yeah.
Bueno, creo que lastimosamente la señal no está muy bien porque lo que nos está aportando Dom es muy importante.
Okay, Thomas mentioned something very important, but her connectivity is very poor. She's showing us her map of actors and giving us an explanation of the different actors and the level of relationship that they have based on the change she's expecting. Anybody else who wants to share with us, please? From Asia team, who wants to share part of the presentation? Can anyone from Asia, do you want to say something, comment something, add a little something to what Dom was saying? Okay, I think, does anybody else want to say something? Nukila lost her audio as well. If not, I'll let our peers. Nukila, you gonna say something?
Can I speak,
Yeah.
teacher?
Okay.
¿Quién quiere hablar? Who wants to speak?
I want to speak. Teacher, I want to add in Bangladesh, there are a lot of political parties, like a national and local political parties. In there are lots of local level. There are lots of indigenous people who are involved with politics, like youth and the elders. So in my I will put my stakeholder with them that I want to share and it together with them. So if I tell them that they come and join with us workshop, that they won't come, but it's an opportunity to go there and share with them with findings what we get from the research, and it will help us to especially in advocacy. So I think I will collaborate with my research stakeholders.
Gracias, Ananja.
Thank you, Nanja. Okay, we lost the last part of it. Nukila, Dom, do you want to say something else to finish off? To start with the comments? Would you like something else before we let our peers from Africa take over? Are you good? Nukila, Dom? Are you okay? All right.
Sí, ya podemos empezar con los comentarios de África hacia
Okay,
la
Daisy.
presentación de Asia. Bienvenida.
Daisy, you are open mic. Daisy, you're
Okay,
free to open your mic.
thank you very much, teacher. I just got interested when my sister Anaya was saying something on the youth being participating in politics and how she's going to engage them. That really caught me, like it really caught my interest, because just the other week here in Kenya, we had something called the grassroots elections, and it's still going on, and the youth were much involved. They are the ones, like 90% of the youth who are gathering and all that. And I thought it will be such a good thing. I had not thought of it, but I can, if allowed, use her idea, go and meet my youth when they're gathering for all those elections and all that. So thank you, I'm glad.
Gracias, Daisy. Muy bien, quisiera saber, además del comentario de
Thank
Daisy,
you, Daisy. Besides my comment by Daisy, does somebody else from Africa want to say something? That was the presentation done by Aisha. And well, obviously, Latin America, if you want to say something, you're free to make any comments as well. Make suggestions or comments. The mic is open to anyone who wants to make a comment. Vivian, do you want to say share something? Africa, our presentation. You are open to do so.
Okay, thank you. Kindly, I'm not going to put on my video because I'm in a place that probably people might get offended. I don't have their consent and all that. And again, it's raining, so it might tamper with our network. So kindly, you'll allow me do that. Just use the audio. So to start with, I'm very glad because I met today with Vivian, and as Indigenous girls being involved in these processes, we are attending the SBI. I was glad meeting her. We've shared a lot before the class. And just to go straight, I'm sorry I cannot share my screen because it's my phone and I don't know how to. So just to go straight to the main change that I expect in my research and also with the one of Vivian, let me start with mine, is going to do a research on challenges faced by Indigenous girls trying to access their rights to education. One of the main change that I really would like to see is the community embracing the fact that girl childs also deserve education. Just the community understanding, that is the main aspect, that is the main thing I would like to really see the change, because once they get the understanding of the importance of girl child education, it's not going to be hard for them to get resources, because my community is rich, they have a lot of cattle and all that, just that they don't have the capacity, like they're not capacitated to know the importance of girl child education. So I feel like once they understand the importance of girl child education, once that change is instilled in them, all these other factors are not going to be hard. It's not going to be hard for the community elders to sit down and talk to the government because they have a voice. Once they understand the importance of girl child education, it's not going to be hard for them to say, you know, we are not going to allow FGM again. We are not going to allow our girls to be married off at an early age again, because it is very important for a girl child to be educated. So that's actually one of the main change I really want to see, and I really feel like my community should get to understand. And on the main people at the center in this is despite the fact that it is for Indigenous girls, the main people here are Indigenous women, because according to us, it's the woman who, despite the fact that it's a patriarchal society, it's the mother who brings people together. Once, as in the village, once my mother cooks in the evening, she is the one to serve everyone, including my father. So when she's serving us, that is the moment to get to speak. That is the moment to get to talk. So the moment I bring my mothers in the midst of all this, she is going to be the main change. My mother is going to be the source of the change. So that when I get to the indigenous girls, when I get to my sisters, and when I get to the brothers, fathers, elders, and all that, at least the mother knows it, and it is going to be very easy for us to talk to them. So on the other actors, one of the main actors is the village elders, because I cannot just come from nowhere, get to the community without going through them. So they are main actors, because with them giving me the permission, with them giving me the blessings, because there's a ritual. I would like it is something in my community. We have to speak to the ancestors. They have to give me the blessings. So once we do that, they are actually the second people or the first people I'm going to approach. On the second people is, this is in the local, the internal level I'm still talking about. After the elders is, I'm going to talk to the youth in my village. And the main way I was going to do is, in my community, when it gets to lunch period, that is from like 12 to 3, you will find people seated at the village square, more so the youth. There is a very bad thing that has come around called Nasa. This is a dance that people do when they are very idle, and it's something that I feel is really bringing my community down. So they are the next people I'm going to talk to. I'm going to try so much, because I know the norms, I know everything of the community. I'm going to talk with them. I'm going to try and dance with them a bit and talk with them. And after that is I'm going to engage the local authorities. In my community, we have the elders, then there are the people, we call them kazas, who rule every village. So because I'm not going to deal with the whole Pokot, I'm only going to do my research in 3 villages. So I'm going to meet the head of every village. After that, I'm going to meet the sub chief. He's also a stakeholder. That is still just like the local authority. I can meet them like once or different days, because it's just near. Talk to the assistant chief, who is in charge of the area. And after I'm done with that, I can now, I don't know if I'm going to map it under the internal or external. I was still wondering. I was talking with Vivian and my team, because there's the school and we have a teacher. We have 2 female teachers only. One is from my community, another one is not from my community. So I'm going to talk with the teachers. They are part of my stakeholders, because I feel like they are the ones who've been handling these girls. They are the ones who know every year or every term, how many girls do they lose in the school? Why is it that when I get to the school, the lower classes have a good number of girls, but when I get to the upper classes, it's just like 2 girls in a class, 1 girl in a class? I'm very sure and I'm certain they have the answers. They have some issues. Even if they've not tried to talk to the community, I can get some answers from them. So to the last one is, I will use the method my sister Anaya talked about. Anaya, I'm sorry, I have to steal these. During the political periods, because right now I was from the village last week and it was really hot. The politics were high and the youth were meeting in every corner. Every time they're preparing tea, talking about that. So I feel like I will get there, try and talk to them some politics later on, try and ask them questions here and there and these, talk to them also about the importance of this education. And there's also the use of media. In my community, we have 3 local radio stations, and I have approached one. I was really hoping I can pay for one session at night, because that is the moment people in my community listen to the radio. So I talked to them, probably see if they can give me a night from 7 p.m. to like 9 p.m. so that I can sensitize now the whole community. It doesn't matter if it's going to be those who are learned or not, but my community really loves the radio, and that is the most popular radio. So I'm sure when I get to the radio station, I'm not going to speak in English. I'm not going to speak in Swahili. I'm going to address them in Pokot language that they're going to understand. They're going to get it. And I'm sure even if not everyone will get it, there are some in the community who are going to understand. And in the external, I'm going to meet the Ministry of Education, of course, because there are some policies that they've put in place. As I told you, there's a policy that has come up in Kenya called the CBC. It has really led to the dropout of girls in school, because girls have to buy new things, even boys, but now parents prefer to pay for the boy child. No one is paying for the girl child. It's expenses, and the parents prefer their girls to be married off because they feel like it's more expenses added to them. So I'm going to try and talk to the Ministry of Government. They come also and try and talk to the community and make them understand. And on the last is I'm going to talk to the county government now and probably the national government. So that's all about my presentation. I don't know if Vivian is here. She can share a bit, then we can see. Thank you.
Gracias, Daisy, por sus aportes, por
Thank you, Daisy, for your comments and sharing with us your process and sharing with us your influence and actors. I think were. Thank you for Vivian again. You're open to speak now. So you can share your presentation, your map of actors, please.
Thank you so much, teacher, for this opportunity. I'm Manuel. I'm not feeling really well, but maybe I can just share something about my research. So for me, mapping stakeholders is very critical for me and for my research. So the main stakeholders include Indigenous women, because that is the main focus of my work. Because Indigenous women are the people who are directly impacted by the presence of the industry. Because in my community, the main challenge is driven by the main challenges that women face is because of the climate change, and the presence of the cement industry accelerates the impact because emission of gases, which includes carbon and other gases which will contribute to greenhouse gases, will lead to more will contribute greatly to climate change. And climate change results into scarcity of water, high
Bien, la dejamos de escuchar. No, está, pero es probable que... Sí. Vivian, no sé si nos escucha.
Vivian, we stopped listening to you. I don't know if your mic went mute or... I'm guessing your connectivity is also having issues. Vivian, you there? Right. If she comes back in, we'll let her, let's pray for her to finish. But we thank the Africa team for your presentations. I think that in the end, we were able to integrate the whole idea. But I feel that it's important that you were able to share the groups from Asia and Africa. I would like to listen to any comments that you might have of Asia from, I think that the only ones left here, or any peers, anyone in general. Abdayala, you wanna share something? You want some comments from what you heard and what we observed in Asia? What can we ask them? What comments can we come up with? Please, Latin America, if you're please give us your input.
Yes. So
Vivian, you back?
today, I said I don't have so much energy because I'm not feeling well. Yes. When it comes to external actors, I will integrate the Ministry of Environment, because those are the people that govern or regulate establishment of industries in Pokot, and of course in the entire county. And the main aim that I want, because is to ensure that there is sustainable projects if it is necessary, but in most cases, my main aim is to discourage establishment of industries, especially those ones that will have tremendous impacts on the Indigenous women. Yes, teacher, allow me to stop at that point because I'm not feeling well. Thank you.
Gracias, Vivian.
Thank you, Vivian. We understand what you're saying. I know your connectivity and your health as well. We totally understand you. Don't worry. We thank that you're here, that you gave us some input, and we let our peers from Latin America, if you can give us your input as well from what you heard by Asia. And then Asia, if you can also comment to Africa as well. But let's start. Liz, Samai, Jesse, do you have any comment that you might want to add to what was presented by Asia? Or a question that you might have?
Gracias. Sí,
Thank you.
para el caso que nos compartía
For the
Daisy,
case that you were shared by Daisy,
pues primero felicitarla
well,
por
I want to
compartirnos
congratulate you for sharing us
este
because
trabajo, ¿no? Ya
I think that this work
muy avanzado y completo de los actores
it's
que
very
han
complex.
identificado.
This part of the actors is very complex. And I think that something that's very relevant here is she's already identified even the moments and the spaces in which she can take the time to talk to these actors at the time of the meals or at night. So I feel that that's very important that she's already identifying the spaces where she can take advantage of these moments to reach these people. And also want to comment that education is a very important topic, right? Everything that we want to talk about, but in this case, specifically the women, that we're also involved in part of culture. I think that it's important that if you're trying to, that girls have access to education, and talk about culture, about as a central element, a key element, as a key element when you take into account this aspect, this cultural aspects, like the voice of the elders and the women, have to be heard, have to be made heard when you're talking about agreements, so more children have access to. This is important, right? That the elder be heard and the women be heard, and that they be put into a dialogue within the different actors for what she's trying to reach, accomplish in her work, through her work. Thank you, Jesse. If anyone else from Abdayala, or if you want to talk about your presentation for Asa, thank you, Jesse, for your report. If you have something else to share with us, Samai, somebody else? Okay. If not, then we can go ahead. Now, my comment is for the presentation for Asia, your first instance in my first presentation that you gave us, I feel that it was very, I don't know who was the first presentation, but you were showing us the square where you identify, and that you're very clear about that, especially in a topic that has to do with violence and with the youth. And when she presents us what actors, she talks about the internal actors, and then the complexity will be to reach and convince and motivate and sensitize the youth. Then she also presents us in a second moment the external actors, who are the ones who have to do with the issue itself, and to determine through public policies or through different actions an influence on the change. And in this exercise you showed us, It already shows the map, but also to complement with them, because Dom already had shown us the map of actors based on the political participation of women. And then she tells us analysis of the context of violence, of the context of the electoral context, of the war that they're having right now, how they're facing each other right now, and how this will have an impact on the negotiations and incidents. Based on the political context and economical context, the incident context will be very crucial in terms of violence or representation and criminality, and then the incidents will be high. So it's something to define strategies, very clear strategies based on those contexts. And we were saying as well in the last meeting, in one of the sessions, the importance of considering, I don't know if I mentioned it, within our incident plans, protocols of care, of security, of those actors that are going to be, we're talking about that incident, especially in the topic that we want to discuss on the issue and who we want to influence. So it is important to tell us if when we're doing our campaign, if we're mobilizing towards the Ministry of Environment and they close it down instead of receiving us, we have the army coming out, we have the police rioter. So what actions are we going to be taking? So based on the magnitude of the changes of the economical context, political context, and the condition of response that we have in the level of decision making, or the repressive action that some might take, we need to consider within our incident plans certain security protocols. So that's part of, like, generally speaking, and saying that it was very precise, just like Abdayala's one, the structure itself, but we're still missing two things that we talk about with Africa. Point out the level of relationship that we have between rights of education, the girls and women who demand education. They're the center ones. But what is the relationship with the different committees, the parent committees, with the teachers at the local level, with other authorities that are present, and then externally with the Ministry of Education or with other instances? If there are instances that are close to us or close to us, which are the ones who will allow us to work better our mapping, but the exercise that you did allowed us to see this. Obviously, you're building this, and the motivation for Asia, Africa, the allies, that you keep building on this in a participative way. We're talking about a mapping done from our reviews, from our research. This is our perception, but the big challenge is to be able to work with somebody, be there. You might find opportunities to put the bibliography of how a map of actors could look like, based on the documentations, on the relationship of confrontations, on the relations that they might find, no relationships that are there, as graphic as possible. But this can be done in a participative way. So the first step is the identification of those actors internally that have a presence. What actions do they have? What actions they take? What's their level of influence? Is it medium, high, low? Are they indifferent? Are they opposing? And the type of relationship they have. And to do this, we have to do a research. We have to explore who is there. And once we have that, we start graphing the map of actors. But the starting point is that one, identifying those. And then to fill up this map with this matrix, we need to first get to know those actors, not by names, but by objectives, by actions that they take out, and be clear what's the level of impact that they have, so that we can know how to reach them to generate the change that we want. Moreover than the research, for example, because the research, we already have other actors, we have the population that we're going to be talking to. But this map of actors and this matrix is to actually for the change we want to see. So that's something that I want to highlight again. It is important when we talk about the matrix to talk about this change. And this is part of the process. First, we define what we want, and then this will also refine the incidence plan. So with this, we're going to close this part. I hope that it was clear. We'll be sending the bibliography and the presentation so that you are able to apply this and in a participative way get to work with this map of actors and do this process through the matrix in the papers. Who is going to be working on this and research once we are there? Once we're talking about our incidents plan and building this in a graphic way, in a participative way. And with this, we'll be very clear if we know who our actors are, who are the ones who have influence, if they with their power, if they with their influence, if they, or they're opposing to the idea, do we have relationship or not? Just like Nukila was saying, how are we going to have an influence on them? What strategies can we use on them? Remember that we defined 4 strategies. So creating awareness, strengthening alliances, communication, and strengthening organizational strengthening. So this is important as well. And you can recreate this as well. But we need to be very clear who the actors are. Who she, her is. And based on your presentation, we can see that the first influence or the first incidents where we all say that are at the local level, at the level of the community. Influence that they can influence on the change, fight on their own, and that they are the main actors of the actions of incidents that we want. It's not Jenny Lynn, it's not Nukila, it's not Daisy. The ones who are going to move this incident plan is the community. You're going to accompany. You're going to work on the plan and defining the map of actors, in making clear the strategies through activities that you're going to be doing, and doing the time and accompanying. But the ones who are going to push the incident map, the incident plan is the women, is the youth, is the community based on the change you want to see. So that's why I say we have to be very clear in this circle. What is the change that we want? And what actors we want? Who has responsibility in that change? And who has responsibility for? So we have to be very clear on that. And then in the heart is who's going to be generating the change and what is the change that we want to see. So to remind you that this is a process. And with this, we're saying intercultural research is a political action because it's not just giving us information, but also taking action to create that incident, identifying who actors we need, who actors we want to make an influence on. So we have actors that we said here, internally, external, in public institutions, and then the heart of the incidents and the actions is going to be the community as a whole, the women, based on the case that we're looking at. And that this is a graphic process that is participative, in which we are all present. So I hope this is very clear for all of us. Map of actors is a tool for the incident plan to make clear our strategies and the actions that are going to be taken. So I'm going to ask you now, would this be easy? To implement our incident plan, what do we need? What do we need to make our incident plan? When we're talking about the map of actors we want to reach and have an influence on, let's be thinking about, I want to go to the Ministry of Education to talk about actors of education. And then my community is 300 kilometers away from the head of the Ministry of Education. What do I need to get there? What do you think? What are you thinking? What do I need to get there? Or do I just get there and that's it? So what are you thinking, people? What do we need? 300 kilometers away from the head of the state, the capital, where the Ministry of Education is. I want to say something.
Que primero debemos de tener como tal definido pues el plan de incidencia como bien sólido, luego tener los recursos suficientes.
Then we have to have the resources As you mentioned again, if we want to see, if we want to go to the Ministry of Education, if you want to take a committee, if we want to talk about the resources, or you want to take the whole community, then you're gonna have difficulties to do this, the fulfillment of this activity that I want to say, because it will be hard to take the people there because of the logistics, the food, the stay, the transportation. So besides each of the activities, we need to be able to have the resources to carry out these activities. What else? What are we thinking? What else do we need? Jenny is correct. We agree with her comments.
Yo igual estoy de acuerdo con Jenny. Sí, creo
I
que
agree with Jenny as well, because I feel that
es lo que vamos
you need to
a
have an
tratar
agenda of what it is that we're going to be talking about with these instances,
porque no vamos a llegar y
because we won't be there and be like, hi, I'm here. Or I need to know what we're talking about. We have an objective. And like Jenny was saying, we have to have the means, the resources are very important as well. There are expenses that you have to look at. You have to move to one place to another, talking about the food and staying in a place perhaps for days. And this might not be reached on the first time, for a first instance. We're going to meet together one time, two times, three times, or whatever time is necessary to reach these agreements. Somebody else who wants to add to this? What do we need to give life to the instance plan after the research is done? To reach these actors that are who are in favor or against, who are indifferent, who are close to the communities, who are far from the communities, who might be in the head department, or could be in the capital, in the bigger big distances away. But they have the procedures, they have norms. But what do we need? What do you think? What are we missing? Nuquila, what do you think? What are you thinking, Nine? Dom? You can raise your hands, you can speak. Go ahead.
I think we need a strategy of mapping. For instance, who are our bigger enemies, right? Our bigger enemies, we have to know our friends, true friends. We need to know who can just be a friend only without, further collaborations. So this is the way that we, mapping our who are friend and who are enemy or our enemies, and then we need the like vehicles, to achieve that. So for instance, in my case, I need to do side. I do research, but also I need to reach the policymakers. I need to reach let's say, to the ministries, to the government, not make them as an enemy, but while they're against that, but we need to talk with them. That's in fact, we need to talk with the government. We need to talk with the legal enforcers. We need to talk with those who against us. Maybe they don't know, right? They don't know the issue. They don't know how suffering our indigenous people, indigenous women. So yeah, the strategy I think is a core for us, otherwise it's only a research without any impact. So we need to do strategy while to make our research to be impactful. So that's why it needs collaboration, cooperation, coalition, as well as make an allies, something like that.
Gracias, Nuquila. Don,
thank you, Nuquila. Don, what are you saying? What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
In the case of Nuquila, she's talking about the access to land. She was talking about the change of having access to land for women, for the indigenous women in the community, and for the towns. But for that, she has to go to the Ministry of Environment or to the ministry that works on the topic of agriculture. She has to visit the authorities and local municipalities per se. To do that, will they be listening to her? Will they be open to listen to her? If you say, hey, I'm here, I'm doing a research, I want to talk to you so that you can help me, what's happening with these policies. Will she have the strength if she goes on her own? Or does she have to do that in an alliance, in an articulate way? Why do I need to get to that? I'm just trying to give that question to Don, but for the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, I think it's very important also to learn the art of negotiation. So we could communicate clearly with the different stakeholders and get support or at least soften or diffuse the tension. And yeah, it's also very important to be very consistent with the change that we want to see because of the many stakeholders. And no doubt this could be very strong stakeholders as well. uh, they could uh, they could sometimes uh, like distract us from the change or co-opt the change, the movement that we want to push forward. And like, yeah, mask the change instead of really achieving that. So I think yeah, very important to yeah, negotiate, navigate through the different stakeholders and the different interests, but at the same time not losing the core of the change that we want to see. Thank you.
Gracias, Don. ¿Qué opinan las demás? ¿Podrá
What do
Nuquila
you
hacer?
rest think? Can Nuquila go on her own and reach the change for the access to land for the women, to formulate policies on agriculture in favor of access to women to private land? Can she do that on her own? What does she need? Don was saying change. Change is very well defined. So that when I get to those actors, especially those who have powers, they can manipulate us or they can deviate our change or put makeup on their change. But to know that we are still present with the changes that we want and with the different strategies. What do you think? Can Nuclear do this on her own? What can she do to generate that change? Si Naina, si Samai, Vivian, Liz, Ananja, Tunin, someone there who can also help us out here.
¿Qué opinamos, compañeras? Muy bien, parece que hoy estamos calladitas.
We are very quiet today. I hope we're all here present. I thank you all for your comments. Thank you, Jesse. So, but I do invite the other one. For Nuquila, it's very important that this is not a research-oriented activity. The incidence plan this is not ours. These are plans for the community, by the women, for the women. To talk about the commitment, that's the change that we want to reach. That's the thing that we want. That we have the main actor. Who's the main actor? Who's going to be the collective of the women? Is it going to be all women? If it's going to be the entire town? Just talking about Jesse, which is the right to water, clean water, healthy, clean water, no more pollution. Who's going to promote this? The women and the community. Who though? Who's the change that we want to see? And then the alliances that we create with those actors who are friends. who can help us out, who are close to us, who have the possibilities and the resources, and who can be allies for us. Because even if we don't, if one person won't be hurt. Incidents is not, it's collective. A movement, collective movement, in a continuous movement. It's not I got to change and I'm done. I went one time and to the Ministry of Education and that's it. They didn't listen to me. Okay, I'm gone. Bye. No, that's the actor that we want to influence. We're going to be permanently there, persistent there, and create that incident plan has to be very clear on the activities that we want to look at. And we need the resources. We won't be able to do anything without a volunteer. I need food. Okay. I need transportation. I'm going to need communication. I need to call other media so they can see at least 5 media contacted. I need to have a phone minute. I need to have my transportation, but the transportation of the 20 women, of the 20 authorities, of the 5 girls, of the 5 youth, and we're going to be mobilized. So it's 400 kilometers. How do I get back? So perhaps for me, transportation. Will we be staying? Are we going to be staying somewhere to sleep? We're going to photocopy the memo because we're going to go there with a memo, with something written. The incident is a process. It's an intense process. And that's the big dream that we have. That's the big challenge that we have, that our research leaves something behind. Internal and external. And based on that, we're going to talk about budgets. Because we can talk about incidents just doing it voluntarily with something punctual. No, we need to have a budget, an incidents budget. But before we do this on the presentation, let's take a little moment to stretch out, please. Let's get some movement going. Let's move our arms. Let's roll our shoulders. Let's do this for our eyes. Open your eyes.
Muy bien. Los sentidos, una vez.
Let's tuck our senses. Rub your senses once, twice, 3 times. Let your roll forward, roll them back. 3, 4. Then forward, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's move our head. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now roll them back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's stretch as far as possible. Just like the cats do when they wake up. Let's stretch as fast as we can. Now roll the shoulders. Let's start getting heat. Let's warming up. Because here is hot, but I'm still warming up. And now let's continue. How do we prepare a budget? I want to ask you, what do you want to know about budgets? Why do we need budgets? Have you ever done a budget? And what do you what do you know about budget? What questions would you have about budget? Because we have to define budgets based for our incident plan. And it can be something that we have to find the resources, and then we present this to FIMI, and FIMI can guide us to how we can do this, because the incident plan won't be left in a document for the research, but it's going to be alive. But for that, we need the alliances, we need the negotiations, we need the strategies, and the activities. But to make those activities, we need a budget. So what do we need about budget? What questions do you have? What do you think is important to have a budget? I have 2 questions right here. I'll leave the mic open. 2 questions for you. What do we need to know, and why is it important to have a budget? For me, a budget is important because it allows us to have that how much something will cost to do an activity. Because like, what do we need to take into account for the action that we want to take so that it can happen, make it happen? I think I'm not good at making budgets. I really like it because I know certain values, but in reality, I might be out of what I'm writing down there, and the quantity or the amount that we need can be different. So my question would be, or what I want to know is, when we talk about budgets, is how do I make them very, very real to what we're doing?
Gracias, Jenny. Muy bien. Al parecer Jenny se quedó detenida, pero gracias por sus
Jenny
aportes y
froze, but
vamos a
thank you, Jenny.
responder eso en la presentación.
We'll talk about that in the presentation as well.
Jenny. Creo que hoy la señal nos está afectando a
The
todas.
signal is killing all of us today,
¿Quién más
but we'll
quiere saber del
continue.
presupuesto?
Does anybody else want to talk about the budget or why something is important?
¿Qué dice Daisy?
Daisy,
Quisiera saber usted sobre
what would you like to know about
presupuesto.
budget and why is it important?
Muy bien, ¿alguien más que quisiera
Anyone?
preguntar?
Anyone? Does anyone have a question?
Para mí el presupuesto económico
For me,
es
budget is the part, the
fundamental
economic part,
porque
but it's very
sin el
important
recurso,
because
pues no
without the
podemos hacer muchas
resource,
cosas, ¿no?
we can't do anything.
Entonces,
So,
a mí, igual que a Jenny, es una
just like
parte
Lenny
que
was
cuesta
saying, it's the part that is
a veces
hard for me to work
las
on
mismas instituciones que van a
because the
financiar
same
la
institutions that are going to
carrera
finance us ask
como
us
requisitos muy estrictos, ¿no?
like very
Desde
strict requirements
las cotizaciones
on the
sociales.
official.
Entonces, también invertir mucho tiempo
You invest a lot of time into it
estar ahí
because you need to be finding the documents,
detallar muy
going on the
bien
quotes,
saber
making the
en
details
qué
on what's happening,
cantidad.
how you're going to spend on each, how much money you're going to spend on each activity. And the reality is that even if we stay navigate as close as possible,
a ese presupuesto
the budget,
en realidad el trabajo de
reality is
muchas cosas
that in the
son
field you're going to be missing stuff.
y
Stuff is going to come out.
como también ir ahí adecuando, ¿no? El recurso
So
que
going there, we have to be adequating ourselves
a lo cambiante que es
to
los
how
precios,
changing the
los
prices might
costos de
be.
las cosas, de los materiales, de
Talk
los
about
servicios.
materials and the services.
Esa es mi opinión. Gracias.
Gracias, Jessie. Nuquila
Thank
iba
you,
a
Jesse.
opinar. Vi que había abierto su micrófono. ¿Qué quiere saber sobre presupuesto y por qué es importante el presupuesto? ¿Qué opina Nuquila?
Nikila, your thoughts?
May I speak to you?
Por favor, Nay. Le escuchamos, Naina.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, my sister and teacher. Yeah, for me, budget is an important, crucial part for grounded research, and it is important to run the research smoothly and perfectly. Yeah, it is a very crucial for grounded research. It's important for primary research mainly. Yeah, thank you.
Muy bien. Bueno, vamos a avanzar. Quisiera preguntarle si alguna ha hecho presupuesto.
Have any of you ever done a budget? Have you ever have to prepare a budget before? Or no? But we never had experience on budgets.
Yeah.
I have ever written a budget.
Vivian, we can listen to you.
Yes, teacher,
Can you
I
tell us
have
your
ever
experience?
written a budget before, and some of the things that is included in the budget is the activity in one of the column, the unit of the things that maybe one will buy or the services that one will procure, the quantity of each unit, the cost of each unit, I mean, the total cost, the subtotal and grand total of the monetary values that maybe someone used while undertaking some work. Yes.
Gracias, Vivian.
Thank you, Vivian.
Gracias, Vivian. Vamos entonces
Thank you.
con los aportes de cada una a iniciar. Perdonen, pero tuve aquí está. Muy bien, vamos a tratar de abordar porque es importante.
We're going to try to talk about why it's important to have research. What is the research? How do we classify the cost to prepare our budget? How do we estimate a budget? Because sometimes you don't have to have the exact cost of what we're going to be needing. So I'm going to explain that part too. And also a basic guide to create budgets. I'm first going to explain. You've heard about this before.
La palabra presupuesto viene etimológicamente, se compone de dos palabras.
So we have three, which is before. And supuesto is a fact. So a fact before. So the budget allows us to foresee something before it happens. It's a formal estimation of the income and outcomes that are going to happen during a period. But we're going to come, this is going to come in, this is what I have, this is how I can plan for something, the income and the outcome, for a business in particular, for the government, or for our case with our project, for the incidence plan, because it will allow us to have this incidence plan. We can also define a budget, an operational plan, to have resources in a company, organization, to reach during certain objectives, and this can be expressed in currency. On budget, on resources, on what will. And these objectives are going to have a cost. And this is going to be defined by strategies, by the actions, and so get these actions and then the budgets. And to translate all of these activities, all these actions into monetary, into a currency. It has expenses for coming in and coming out for a person, organization, the government, something you can foresee for a certain period in terms of the finances and the uses and objectives that they're going to be using for each item of expense, and how to use the tradition in the long term of those resources. So this means that a budget allows me to foresee what I'm going to be needing in a certain period of time. Our incidence plan, for example, is going to have, let's say, midterm 3 years, but for that, and you have actions, annual action. And for this annual action, a semester action. And for semester actions, monthly action. And specific actions by day, by periods. So how do you express that in currency in a budget? And that's what's interested. What type of budget we have? Well, we have sales, the commercial expenses, the building, investment buildings, and then project budgets. For our own research, Intercultural Diploma, we're going to focus on project budgets, specifically on budgets for our incidence plan. What importance does this have? First, it allows us to minimize risk in the operations of the organization, of the group, or the community. We want to minimize risk when you're executing, because we have already foreseen, let's say, a campaign, a communications campaign on the rights to water, to access to water, of territory free of chemicals, of waste in a community. Well, that's an activity. The risk is that I can't do it because I don't have the resources. But if I plan ahead and I know that this activity is going to require certain resources based on a budget, and the people who promote this, that's what I budget. Where will this activity happen? Will it end up a place? Will I have to pay for media? Will I have to do a forum, and then we'll have different documentations? Would I be calling the assemblies of the community? All right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need food. I'm going to need transportation, because not all of this is in a community. But then the local communities, do we have audiovisuals? So do I need to bring something? So you start looking at the different costs. And if I already foresee this, if I already plan for this in my incident plan, and already established a cost for it and it's in a budget, then there is no risk of the activity not happening, because I already have planned ahead for that. The budget also allows to have efficiency and control within the operations, meaning if we're defining
y podemos decir, por ejemplo, vamos a movilizarnos al Ministerio de Ambiente. Está en la ciudad capital a 300 kilómetros.
at 200 kilometers. I'm going to need transportation for 20 people. So how do I talk about 3 people? Who offers me the best price? But the quality and the safety. So that's what budget does for me, to be more efficient. With the resources that I have, to be able to accomplish the most amount of activities without putting at risk the quality and the dignity of people. I would require 40 lunches, per se. 40 breakfasts, 40 lunches, 40 dinners. And for that, okay, I won't go with the first person who offers me food. They might offer me something that's very economical, but the quality is not good. Or they might offer me a high price, but the quality is not good as well. Or they don't have how to reach to my community. I have to move to get it. So everything has to do with efficiency and the control of the actions and the operations that we're going to be doing when we are implementing our incident plan. Another element is the standardization. If I already foresaw community lunches, community meals that cost me in Guatemala per se, in a community, a breakfast might cost me 20 quetzals, which is like $7. $150, I'm sorry. Lunch will cost me $2, and dinner might cost me $2 as well in the community. So I can standardize that this is what the type of food I can buy, but I have a standard of the cost for food for all the activities that I'll be doing in the community. Outside the community, if I go into the State Department or the capital of the city, the food is going to be cost $5 or $7 for lunch and $7 for a dinner per se. And I have already this established within the internally how much the food's going to cost me. The food, same thing goes for sleep. How much will that cost me to have a press conference? Because I want to give elements to the media. They don't charge, but they only ask for food. For example, this is in our region. So you prepare for them some type of meal for them. Finishing the conference, to have a little basic meal for them. So we adjust the prices and we know how much that is. But that is important to know this, to have quotes and be informed, because that's what budgets allow me to be informed and be very clear on the information and in terms of money, and also for accountability purposes. I foresaw X amount of money, and how much did I spend? If I didn't spend it, I mean, if I went overboard, to be able to inform it on time. That's another element that we have to, the element that the budget allows us to have. And also to review policies and strategies of our own process, our own incident process, to see if we're reaching what we want. Meaning, it allows us to see within our strategy that we have, it has a cost. Any action that we take has a cost. Just the fact that we are sitting down in a virtual event right now, we need the translator. That has a cost. We need that all the women have access to internet. That has a cost. And it allows us to see the budget. And also the budget of the project. What is the budget? It's the sum of all the money that we're going to be assigning to reach an objective, to cover all the expenses. What does this imply? What the results, the strategies, and the activities that I'm going to be developing? So budget for our project is already up in the air. It's based on the objective. In our case, in our students plan, our budget is going to be based on the objective of change that we want to reach. So you'll be able to define that properly. What are the results that we want? What is the outcomes that we're looking for? To reach that strategy, what activities that we need at the local level, at the regional level, at the national level, for each one of the strategies, so that you can later on say, for each activity, this is a cost. This activity is going to require food, this activity is going to require transportation, printing, it's going to require and we talk about organizations that we talk about and talk about we talk about printed documentation, so we have some posters or whatever type of information we want to bring out. And this is activities that we're looking about of mobilizing and talk about of going to the Ministry of the Environment. This has a certain amount of budget, and we need to define very clear the activities and and then the budget. And also the budget will allow us to see.
Solo estamos viendo la primera diapositiva que dice aprendiendo a elaborar un presupuesto y está minimizada.
Ay, perdonen, voy a ver ahora. Me dicen, voy a dejar de compartir y vuelvo. Gracias que me lo dijeron. Vamos a ver acá. Ahora, ¿cómo la ven? ¿Se ve completa?
Sí, ya
Can you see the full screen?
¿Y corre?
No, está en la primera diapositiva.
No está corriendo.
Ahora sí.
Ahora sí.
Muy bien. Ahora vamos a ver acá. ¿Sí? ¿Sigue corriendo?
se ve la segunda donde están las preguntas de qué queremos saber y por qué.
Muy bien. ¿Y ahorita? ¿Ahora?
Se sigue viendo la misma.
Es que no sé qué será.
Ahora
Quizá-
sí. Que
We're
se
trying to fix something with the presentation. Give me a chance. All right, now we're talking about the content.
Y se ve, no lo puedo ampliar porque
I can't make this bigger, but
ahí tengo esa dificultad. ¿Ahora se ve?
Sí, ahora sí. ¿Qué es el presupuesto? Tipos de presupuesto, sí.
Importancia del presupuesto.
so she's trying to find the slide where we are right now.
Aquí vamos. Muy bien. Perdonen. Entonces el presupuesto de un proyecto
So the budget project is the sum of the amount of money assigned to cover all the projects of the incidence plan for a specific period, meaning you have an incidence plan, it has to have a period. It's going to be a 3-year period. It's going to be a 5-year period because we want to see have an incidence internally, regional, and national. Each one of you is going to define based on your project the period that you're going to be discussing. It's also going to show us how much it will take us to fulfill an incidence plan. Detail the expenses that we're going to be requiring to see that change happen. So we talk about the relationship, this is activity, the activity allows me to do this within my strategy, and my strategy will allow me to reach a certain amount, a certain objective, and this objective has a certain purpose, certain change.
Luego, no solo dedicar la mayor parte del tiempo al manejo y control del cronograma, o sea,
and take control of the time.
En este caso, es lo que queremos, estamos hablando, no solo es dedicarnos a ejecutar y ver que se esté cumpliendo el tiempo. Tenemos que ver y monitorear que se
We have to monitor and see that the budget happens.
¿Qué voy a hacer como primera actividad?
What will I do with an activity? What to make sure that I'm reaching the objective and see the influence plans that we're looking at. That's the first thing. For August, for say, the 20th of August, 24th of August, for say. What will I be needing then? Okay, I foresaw it. Okay, it's already there. It's 20th of August. But I need to see my budget. What do I need? What do I require to make this activity happen? And monitor that from what I saw in my budget, if I say $100, okay, I'm talking about food, I'm talking about the place, I'm talking about the materials, I'm talking about people from the media coming in, the dance for the community, it included a circle of the word. Each one of these activities is going to have a cost. So I need to fulfill that this activity happens based on what I talked about. So the budget will not only see us, am I reaching the activities and the objectives, but also tell me, am I implementing the budget as it is on the time frame that we established? And that's an important element that we took into account. And why is it important to talk about the budget project? Why do we need a budget project for our incident plan? It will allow us to control how much something will cost me for have. It will have a cost, economic cost, a financial cost. It will have certain resources that might reach by the community, by women, by the organization, but it might not be enough. I might be needing other types of contribution. But it will also allow me to have the income. I know the budget, so how much will I spend? I know how much I have, how much will I spend? It will tell me how much money I need to reach our activities. Meaning, everything that I plan in the incidence plan will have a budget. And we're going to force us to think about the consequences of the planning of the activities. Our incidence plan may have many activities in different processes, but when you start doing the budget, you find out that it's too high. And this will allow us to, when we're formulating the activities, this might not be happening because we need to prioritize certain activities. And the budget will also say that, okay, let's prioritize and define the activities that we're going to reach with this is the budget that we have. If we're talking about if we've done this the correct way, if it's being used properly, if we do an execution of the budget, we can say we used it properly. You can say for food, we had this amount, but we went to a hotel that was unnecessary. what happened in experience to us. We went to a nice hotel, but they have the air conditioner. It was closed. It didn't allow the women to be outside. It was a very racist space, and we had women who had children. So we had certain controls. It was very uncomfortable. And based on all this uncertainty and the racism, the women were not able to reach the objective that we had. We said this activity didn't work because of the place and elevated cost. But what we spent on that cost in the hotel, we could have done 3 events for food and 3 events. So the budget allows us to redo and analyze the execution, and if we were able to reach the objective. And not because an objective is more expensive, but different conditions will allow us to guarantee if the place wouldn't have racism, discrimination, if there is no air conditioning, if we have spaces for so we need to talk about a basis for accountability and to show us the amount that we need to carry out certain activities. Ideally, when we talk about with transparency, we need to have a budget and have a basic accountability for the execution. And let's affirm that's how we've done. I have 12 incident plans will reach certain external cooperation funds. So you have to be very clear objectives with different changes, reachable with results that can be measurable. We have strategies already established and very well developed activities which complement each other, and obviously with the budget that is clear. And you have a good job on that, on the budget, you'll be able to find the funding. But also transparency. It is important to have that budget, to have that accountability, the basic accountability. The income, the outcome, the changes that we have. And the budget would allow us to see if we need, how much we need to fulfill our activities. And we have this very well set. And the format that we're going to be accountable for it, we'll be able to get those funds to implement our plans. Also, we need to take into account that we need to have a budget. We can't talk to anyone. So what do you want to read? That women have access to education. How many? All of them. No. How many? What does it change? In my plan, I need to be defined to have a policy in the community. So all of this will be taken into account. So that's the things you want to reach. Okay, perfect. And the results are going to come for objectives. What are your strategies? Okay, for my strategies, I have this activity already defined. And I'm going to do them in a 3-year period. For the first year, we're going to do this, and that. And for this, I'll need to define budget. And here is my budget for those plans. And those who have women who live violence, to the community of women. For terms of communities who have access to water, we're going to have men and women of the community. We're going to negotiate those budgets. We're just accompanying it. Those who were demanding access to land, the community and the women, with a plan. Very well defined, a budget very well established. And that's going to be able to get those funds. If not, I have a paper with a different ideas, with nobody willing to give me a chance. And then we have to empower the community as well. And then relation. To see the promotion of the plan, the influence plan, we're only accompanying it, remember. So we need to be able to see those strategies, those objectives, and the budget, and they're the ones who are going to be negotiating. And this is the important part. Donors use the budget as the basis to decide if what we're requesting is reasonable or not, and if it's well planned or not. So we need to be clear. We have to be very precise. Based on the activity that we're doing, the budget needs to be very well defined in that sense. And then in the practice, to talk about the transparency and accountability. If we have a budget, regular execution of the budget, fulfilling on time, and the resources will allow us to be recognized as an instance that is transparent, that is efficient, because for executing in time and with the resources that were given to us. And what changes do we need for the budget to happen? We need to define very clear the objectives have to be done in a participative way as well. That's the most important part. We already have the incident plan, we have the objectives, we have the timeline. Now let's talk about the budget as well.
Lo ejecutamos. Primer paso, lo negociamos. Llevamos nuestro plan a negociar, a
So first we
gestionar.
negotiate our budget, and then we execute it. The execution is daily, weekly, monthly, semestral, and annual. So we need to be very clear that the process goes and try to fulfill it with the times that we are establishing ourselves. I can't say in the course as well. In July, I'm done. There is an assigned budget for a period of time. We're already preparing reports, and we're going to be executing there. So this is based on established time. And then talk about the budget, control the budget. Just so we have the control of our forms, of what activities we're going to be developing during the time. We need to be able to control next to the execution of the programmatic execution of the budget or the activities, the budget as well. So they can match it with the budget already established. And then you're done with this activity. If I say 20 people showed up. This is the cost for the food, of the place, of putting on the campaign. So we need to control the budget with those activities. And then update. If I see that along the way, like you were saying, there are some activities that do not match, but they're important, then we gotta prioritize those activities and we change those activities as well. And we need to make this happen to the donor, so they know what's happening. We're doing a change here. And we add activities. So we have something left from our activity. So we need to reallocate this amount within this activity because it is important. So we control that part. We control the reported activity. We are clear of the activities that we're talking about. So we opted the budget, not because we didn't do it well, but because we are in execution that is very exact. And the process demands that of us, but because we have some money left behind. So the budget is not a trade jacket. You can update it, but not to do stop doing activities, but because I'm trying to complement and it will help me fulfill others. So avoid these things from happening. The person who's responsible of the budget is important. It has to do the budget, meaning who is going to be in charge of the budget. Those who are talking about the incidents need to establish a budget to accomplish these activities. If we're talking about the manager, is the one who's responsible for the group, for the finance group. Somebody's going to take in charge of the execution. So this person has to assign all the costs to the activities and all the changes within it. So the person who's doing the budget has to be very clear, the activity, and then have them assigned to the incident. Doing the research. We're going to be talking about who people are coming voluntarily to facilitate transportation and food. We have somebody from the public office come in. Let's talk about we're going to pay for them the transportation, the lodging, or the food. We might bring them food for them, but all public officers they already have budget for that to mobilize. For example, this might include human resources for the team that we're going to be talking with, the traveling that we're going to be taking, mobilization expenses that we're going to be looking at. All of this is important and to be incorporated with the for each activity that we do. So we have operational costs and organizational costs as well. I'm going to start presenting just for a minute. Are we all clear on what we're talking about so far? I hope you're not falling asleep. Are we all clear so far? All right. Let me continue. I know I'm sorry they have a recess. Do you think that we need 5 minutes? 10 minutes for a break right now and then we close? Can we take 10 minutes? Okay, if you have questions when you come back, please, when you come back, let us know. I'll ask you to do it to give us the timer as well. So we come back in 10 minutes, please.
Claro que sí. Otis, ¿nos puedes apoyar con el temporizador de 10 minutos? Muchas gracias.
Muy bien, entonces vamos a continuar. No sé si hubiera alguna pregunta. Si no,
We
vamos
are back. If you have any questions so far from what we started, if not, we can continue talking about the project. Just let me put the presentation back up again. So questions so far from what we discussed so far. Any questions or comments?
Muy bien. Entonces vamos a compartir esta otra
Okay,
parte.
then we share the second part then.
Me indican
We were talking about the classification of the cost.
si se ve la presentación. Muy bien. Entonces vamos a, no
So
voy a,
let's
voy a,
talk about,
dice también si la presentación corre. Y vamos en la clasificación de costes. Están
we're going to talk about the cost classification. We have the operational cost and the organizational cost. Operational costs are the ones that we do directly with the implementation of the project and can be identified and measurable and controllable from a project. The direct costs from talk about the labor, the materials are used directly for the execution of the project, meaning that these are the costs that we're going to be operating our projects, all the activities that we're going to be doing. For example, the payment of a renting of a place or to carry out an assembly or a consultation, a community consultation or an assembly to take decisions on the regulations or the use of water or the policy, municipal policies, or have access to water, to take care of the water or water itself. For just examples, right? So those are the renting of the place, the printing of the document, hiring the labor for a specific person who is going to help us fulfill these activities. Anything that has to do with the execution of the activity that we have already foreseen in our incident plan. The organizational one have to do with business, the administration that we do, the back office that we do. The incident plan will have a team in the back who's going to carry out the budget, or going to do the plans, we're going to do the contacts, we're going to have to talk about the basic control of the plan and the budget itself. So that's the ones that we call organizational costs. That has to do with the payment of the people who are going to take care of the implementation of the plan, the incident plan. And maybe permanent costs as well throughout the execution of the incident plan. And who are going to be able to fulfill the plan and the activities that we already foresaw. The operationals will allow us to carry out activities, and the organizational ones, everything has to do with the staffing and the actions that we allow us to carry out and guarantee the activities, the orientation, and accompany the execution of the activities. We also have established the investment cost as well. These are the costs for
que vamos a realizar, en este caso, el plan de incidencia, y que pueden ser costos que permanecen como capital organizativo después incluso se acabe el proyecto. En este caso, nosotras,
in this case, we're talking about for the incidence plan, it's not an investment plan because we're not going to be an investment. We're just going to generate, we're not going to generate profits. What we're going to do is operational costs. And that's probably it. Other costs or the staffing, which is the basic staff, or it could be the administration that you can hire, somebody who executing permanently for the incident plan. And that's a cost that we're going to be talking about salaries, subsidies, mobilization for the people, medical attention. But for the characteristics of our project, perhaps this cost for staff will not be taken into account. What do we need to take account in our budget? Direct costs, indirect costs, fixed costs and variable costs, labor and materials, and other expenses. The other ones we're talking about the depreciation of the equipment based off the initial value, the gas if you have a vehicle, then the depreciation of the vehicle as well. Are you going to be talking about a vehicle that you're going to have for 3 years? And obviously that's going to be evaluated by the end of 3 years. There's other expenses as well. It's just an example. It doesn't have to be this way specifically. And then the register for the risk, which is something that we're taking into account. They have to take into account a backup, a threshold for amount for any contingencies that might occur. So take a percentage of the risk based off the budget. And here, for example, we have in activities, we have materials, services, and transport. How much does this cost to have this activity? The cost per unit. This is the expense in one item. Equipment. What do we need? If we need, what will be the unit cost of each? If we talk about per day, are we talking about kilometers, per people, based on the service that you're going to look at, the expense that you're looking at. Then, the amount. We say we're going to need transport. The cost per day is, let's say, 10 quetzals, which is to transport each other from the community to the municipality, back and forth per day. Okay, so 10 quetzals to go, and then 20 to come back per person. How many people are coming? So we're gonna mobilize 20 people. Those 20 people, we calculate the 20 quetzals for 20 people. The amount will be 20 times 20, 400 quetzals in our case. That is just an example, okay? And but we try to organize it, our cost, our budget, based on our costs. Direct costs and indirect costs, variables and labor. Here's something else that we have to look at. Administrative and the general cost. This is an example. Later on, I'm going to continue talking about this in more detail. What type of budget can we look at? We have survival budget, which is the minimum to necessary for projects to survive and have operational. So we have an organization, they have an incident plan, and we're going to need a certain amount of money to survive, so they can be working throughout time. The guaranteed budget is based on the guaranteed income at the moment in which the budget was planned. And the optimal budget is the one that we would like to have is when we have additional money. The survival budget is basically the one that we can consider based on what we have, the capacity that we have, and the resources that we have. The guaranteed is based on the income that we have a lot. And based on that, we do our planning. And then the optimal one is when we plan the budget of what we wish we could have. So we're just foreseeing. Then we have the financial costs, direct and indirect costs. Those are the ones that be looking for the very permanent. They're going to affect the activity. Indirect ones are the ones that are going to come out along the way. they're not going to ensure. I mean, they ensure the activity, but they're not always the same. For example, salary or additional cost or subventional cost. The subventional ones means that somebody's granting us, somebody's giving us a amount of it. Subventional ones are the ones that we have as an organization, and the other ones are the ones that we can get. So we're foreseeing as well a percentage of risk there as well. And then all of these costs can be linked to the timeline, to the activities that we have planned out. We talk about the budget project globally. So we have a global budget, and then this is going to allow us to have how much each objective is going to cost of the project. How much will it be to say women and girls in the community have access to education? And through the formulation of a project in the community, this is what it is. So the budget is going to give us that cost. And then a final cost of the project for the entire process, for the entire incidence plan. And then the summation of the budget requires which resources I'm going to be needing. So in terms of the people, the resources, the equipment, the services, the materials, and the amount of each to fulfill the objective. And the structure will allow us to know how much we have to fulfill our incidence plan. And then the structure is going to break down from the incidence plan, the reach that we want to have, the historical information that we have, the resources and policies that we have, and the requirements needed to fulfill these activities. For example, here, perhaps I might not be a manager, but somebody to coordinate the project. One person. Two people for communication. One for alliance. Two people. The administrator. Let's talk about, this is an example, okay? Let's talk about one person who's going to be the accountant. Half time. And then the driver, you might not need it. Just here for resources, human resources only. What resources? Let's talk about it. There's a 1 month plan. Then we have communications, alliances, and an organization one. It's going to be with us 6 months, and so on and so on and so on, based on the amount of times we're going to need them. We're going to need specialists in something. We're going to have a committee of women, permanent women. We're going to be talking for full time. So we're going to have 7 women. And those 7 women are going to be active for 6 months. So we take that into account. That is just for resources, for human resources. Then for equipment and materials, we're going to need what? Labor. How much will that mean in the community? We're going to describe what person are going to be. How many units you'll be needing. What equipment do you need? For example, we're going to need a computer, a recorder, a camera. For how long? The unit for each. A description. Camera, a recorder, tape recorder. How much is this? How much do I need? Materials. We're going to talk about paperwork. Office supplies, markers, staplers. We put each one of those details of what we're looking at. How much of each? And the materials here, we talk about articles, like writing materials. Just everything will depend on your activity, on your incidence plan, and the activities they're going to be carrying out within in the incident plan. For example, if our incident plan has formulating a policy for the access to land, very ambitious, of course, but that's what we're stating. We're talking about a legal reform to the access to land law that might not exist, and we have to create a law. Then we're not lawyers. We don't have lawyers in the community. We need to hire one. An indigenous lawyer who knows about this topic of the rights of the town, of the framework, national framework, national legal framework. So we put a lawyer there who's going to be helping us out as well to talk about the policies and then discussing this. How many days? Meaning 90 days in total. This is just an example. The budget also, once we have already the resources, the human resources, the materials that we need, the transportation, then we need to we can we can do a breakdown of each, and then talk about the requirements that we do need to execute the plan, the incident plan, which has been already documented. So we talk about the cost of each one of them, which will give us as a result the budget of the project. An estimate cost, like Jesse was saying, we don't have exact data, but we have to get some quotes and get the most to get the most approximate number, and give it a certain increment. If it's less, then we say we have something in favor. If something that goes overboard, then will be it. The estimated cost will allow us to give that amount to use the resources. And the preliminary estimation, I mean, we have several estimation formulas you can find when you're budgeting. So you have a pre-proposal to give a general idea of the precision of this is 75%. It's precise. It's 75%. Other type of estimations, we give a startup. We're going to hire, for example, a lawyer. Or the lawyer. You're going to have an initial phase. We have estimation of the contract. Why? Because the negotiation with the donors we need to be able to establish a base. How much will this cost us? That you're going to hire? How much will the communication was going to cost us? So you can see this. So they will give us a 10 to 15% approximation. And then we have a definite estimation. Once we have a plan, we already have the cost. And why do we talk about this? Because it allows to monitor the cost regularly. And the precision is from 5 to 10%. So this is all part of the different type of precisions allows us to know that this is a process. It will not give us exact data. In this case, this will include the honorary, the cost, the short cost, regulations and restrictions that we have, because this also happens. We create the documents that will define the authorities over the budgets and the controls of it. In this case, we're talking about who's coordinating the project, who's coordinating the incident plan, and then the budget project to communicate what categories and resources we're going to be establishing and what period we're going to do this. Then the elaboration of the budget, which allows us to have documents that are going to facilitate the budget. For example, the reach of the project that will give us a total of the management plan of the project, will allow us the planification of when it will be carried out. So it's a key document to know that the incident plan. This is very important. Then also have the timeline as well will help us. It's very important. When will I be doing this and what process, what and when? This is important for the budget as well. And if we have a cost management, meaning this cost right here, we're going to be establishing other process, establishing our costs, which allows to give us an approximate estimation of the cost to stay within an acceptable range. And then the management, the risk registry, which gives us a chance of the variables that might affect our project. It is important to have a threshold, a risk threshold. What risk can we find throughout the execution of the project, the incident plan? What are those variables that might have that impact on us and going to affect the fulfillment of the objectives, but also the execution of the budget? Maybe I had an event established. So I think we had the pandemic, for example. We had the gathering in the community, in the hospital, in the State Department, and that's a risk that would happen. Another risk might be that we went to some place and then nobody attended us. They don't care about the topic that we wanted to discuss. So we need to define that is a risk. I will not be going there one time. I need to go perhaps another time until somebody looks for me, decides to talk to me. Perhaps each one of our topics won't last only one visit. So this is another risk that we have to take into account. So these are 4 types of key documents that we need to take into account to be able to carry out a budget besides the quotes. Obviously, the most real as possible when we talk about quotes, based on what we're trying to discuss. Talk about the media, everything depending on the activities that we have. To talk about the most accessible prices, the budget, the most realistic as possible, looking into the quality as well. Another element of the budget, to carry out the budget, talk about if they're guaranteed. What is the budget? It's the planning. Most of the time, we're talking about budgets. Each one we're talking about what will the community give us? The time frame that we talk about the documentation. So there's going to be a committee who's going to be with the donors, or will there be a committee that's going to look after each of the activities? So that they're defining and what the process will take us. It's not just right away adding notes to the budget. This is also important. We need to be able to have a base in Excel, trying to detail each one, how I'm building that process. As soon as I get the information, I can cross-reference this type of thing. I have a real one, a modified version. When we talk about the incidence plan, it doesn't have to be a perfect budget, but as participative as possible, consulting involving the women, the community, in the formulation of it, as well as the execution of it. And tell them what they need to do to stay within the budget, meaning guiding them. These are the amounts that we have, and we can't go out of this month. This is what the resources that we have available. So this is the one that we need to contribute to. Are you informed? Are you constantly informed of the budget, of the execution, of the objectives, of the activities, and the different limits that you have, especially if you've already been approved? Meaning, I want to be able to talk to people. The budget does not allow me to go overboard. And before the time is over, If we're talking about financing, external financing, you need to have a budget.
parte de él a los donantes o parte de él. Quiere decir, si queremos negociar nuestro plan de incidencia, tiene que ir completo, bien definido, con el presupuesto,
Very well defined budget
con el mayor detalle posible.
with every detail as possible, as detailed as possible,
Presupuesto contra los ingresos y
against the income and the excome and the outcomes that we carry out.
tenemos nuestro presupuesto, logramos
If we already have a budget,
tenemos que irlo
we need to be able to be monitoring.
ver que sea coherente
That needs to be coherent
con la actividad
with the activities that I have foreseen with what I'm doing.
tomar las medidas necesarias
Take the necessary measures.
comité de coordinación de
If it's a coordination
o de quien
or who's promoted the plan, we need to take the necessary measures to carry out
elaborar informes.
the reports based on this.
Ya hicimos esta actividad, hicimos la asamblea,
We did the assembly, we did the activity to present
resultados de la
the results of this
y para presentar el plan de
and to present the incident plan.
ya la ejecutamos, se hace una memoria y un pequeño informe. Vamos a hacer la asamblea,
Then we do an assembly
formular el
and we prepare
presupuesto,
the budget
política de agua,
and the policies of water.
hacemos
That's also included.
hacemos un
I'll do the activities and we do the different reports of what happens and we present it.
informes detallados
So we're talking about presenting reports
para las
of the budget to the people who have responsibilities in this part.
quiere decir, tenemos que estar entregando
So meaning we have to be constantly looking at it on the execution of the budget and make reports for the
notas a los informes de
adding notes to report
supervisar las principales diferencias. Pensemos,
to explain the differences that we have. Let's say we were foreseeing 100 and we spent 80 only. Why? Why did we save something?
tenemos que sustentar si
And to be able to sustain this. Why do we spend less or more? And keep the donors informed of what's happening on the budget.
esto es más que lo
If the expense is more than what's budgeted, if it's less, if it's under, everything needs to be informed.
dejo hasta aquí. Yo sé que el horario
I'm gonna stop right there. I know the time is already up. It's very tiring to talk about the budget, but it is very important. I don't want to overwhelm you.
de esto que va a implicar
I don't want to worry you. This is what we're looking at. But if we want to carry out an incident plan, you need to look at a budget, a very well detailed project to see the possibilities of getting external funding. And to see there, we're going to stop right there. I'm going to thank you for listening, to being present. Please, those who are able to open your cameras so that we can have a hug to each other and that we continue with the research. We're going to finish budget and then we're going to start doing the campaigns and seeing the progress on the research that you're doing in the field and prepare on how we're going to present this later on. So I'm going to finish explaining in the next on Friday the budget, and then we'll do an exercise on budget. I'm just going to inform you on a personal. I want to let you know if it's going to be we're doing it, if we can do this Friday or the next. I'll inform you later on. But thank you. Hope you're all well. A big hug to all of you. Take care. Have a happy day, happy afternoon, and happy rest day.
Gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you, teacher. Bye-bye.